Who is Charles Dickens? Charles John Huffam Dickens, born on the 7th of February 1812 and died on the 9th of June 1870, was an English novelist and social critic who created some of the world's best-known fictional characters, and is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. His works enjoyed unprecedented popularity during his lifetime and, by the 20th century, critics and scholars had recognized him as a literary genius. His novels and short stories are widely read today. Born in Portsmouth, Dickens left school at age 12 to work in a boot blacking factory when his father John was incarcerated in a debtor's prison. After 3 years, he returned to school before beginning his literary career as a journalist. Dickens edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles, lectured and performed readings extensively, was an indefatigable letter writer, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. Dickens's literary success began with the 1836 serial publication of the Pickwick Papers, a publishing phenomenon, thanks largely to the introduction of the character Sam Weller in the 4th episode, that sparked Pickwick merchandise and spin-offs. Within a few years, Dickens had become an international literary celebrity, famous for his humor, satire, and keen observation of character and society. His novels, most of them published in monthly or weekly installments, pioneered the serial publication of narrative fiction, which became the dominant Victorian mode for novel publication. Cliffhanger endings in his serial publications kept readers in suspense. The installment format allowed Dickens to evaluate his audience's reaction, and he often modified his plot and character development based on such feedback. For example, when his wife's chiropodist expressed distress at the way Miss Moucher in David Copperfield seemed to reflect her own disabilities, Dickens improved the character with positive features. His plots were carefully constructed and he often wove elements from topical events into his narratives. Masses of the illiterate poor would individually pay a halfpenny to have each new monthly episode read to them, opening up and inspiring a new class of readers. His 1843 novella A Christmas Carol remains especially popular and continues to inspire adaptations in every creative medium. Oliver Twist and Great Expectations are also frequently adapted and, like many of his novels, evoke images of early Victorian London. His 1859 novel A Tale of Two Cities, set in London and Paris, is his best-known work of historical fiction. The most famous celebrity of his era, he undertook, in response to public demand, a series of public reading tours in the later part of his career. The term Dickensian is used to describe something that is reminiscent of Dickens and his writings, such as poor social or working conditions, or comically repulsive characters. Top 50 quotes by Charles Dickens. There is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. I loved her against reason, against promise, against peace, against hope, against happiness, against all discouragement that could be. Never close your lips to those whom you have already opened your heart. Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching, and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be. I have been bent and broken, but, I hope, into a better shape. There are books of which the backs and covers are by far the best parts. Have a heart that never hardens, and a temper that never tires, and a touch that never hurts. A wonderful fact to reflect upon, that every human creature is constituted to be that profound secret and mystery to every other. It is a far, far better thing that I do, than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts. I was better after I had cried, than before, more sorry, more aware of my own ingratitude, more gentle. No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And oh, there are days in this life, worth life and worth death. We need never be ashamed of our tears. What greater gift than the love of a cat? You have been the last dream of my soul. The pain of parting is nothing to the joy of meeting again. It is a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things, that while there is infection in disease and sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I wish you to know that you have been the last dream of my soul. Love her, love her, love her. If she favors you, love her. If she wounds you, love her. If she tears your heart to pieces, and as it gets older and stronger, it will tear deeper. Love her, love her, love her. In a word, I was too cowardly to do what I knew to be right, as I had been too cowardly to avoid doing what I knew to be wrong. It was one of those March days when the sun shines hot and the wind blows cold. When it is summer in the light, and winter in the shade. To conceal anything from those to whom I am attached, is not in my nature. I can never close my lips where I have opened my heart. Out of my thoughts. You are part of my existence, part of myself. You have been in every line I have ever read, since I first came here, the rough common boy whose poor heart you wounded even then. You have been in every prospect I have ever seen since. On the river, on the sails of the ships, on the marshes, in the clouds, in the light, in the darkness, in the wind, in the woods, in the sea, in the streets. You have been the embodiment of every graceful fancy that my mind has ever become acquainted with. The stones of which the strongest London buildings are made, are not more real, or more impossible to displace with your hands, than your presence and influence have been to me, there and everywhere, and will be. Estella, to the last hour of my life, you cannot choose but remain part of my character, part of the little good in me, part of the evil. But, in this separation I associate you only with the good, and I will faithfully hold you to that always, for you must have done me far more good than harm. Let me feel now what sharp distress I may. Oh God bless you, God forgive you. Reflect upon your present blessings, of which every man has many, not on your past misfortunes, of which all men have some. Procrastination is the thief of time, collar him. Every traveler has a home of his own, and he learns to appreciate it the more from his wandering. And yet I have had the weakness, and have still the weakness, to wish you to know with what a sudden mastery you kindled me, heap of ashes that I am, into fire. I will honor Christmas in my heart, and try to keep it all the year. There was a long hard time when I kept far from me the remembrance of what I had thrown away when I was quite ignorant of its worth. I hope that real love and truth are stronger in the end than any evil or misfortune in the world. The broken heart. You think you will die, but you just keep living, day after terrible day. You are in every line I have ever read. Ask no questions, and you'll be told no lies. I have been bent and broken, but, I hope, into a better shape. My meaning simply is, that whatever I have tried to do in life, I have tried with all my heart to do well. That whatever I have devoted myself to, I have devoted myself to completely. That in great aims and in small, I have always been thoroughly in earnest. Pause you who read this, and think for a moment of the long chain of iron or gold, of thorns or flowers, that would never have bound you, but for the formation of the first link on one memorable day. I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss. I see the lives for which I lay down my life, peaceful, useful, prosperous and happy. I see that I hold a sanctuary in their hearts, and in the hearts of their descendants, generations hence. It is a far, far better thing that I do, than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. You are fettered, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why? I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link, and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. There is a wisdom of the head, and there is a wisdom of the heart. The unqualified truth is, that when I loved Estella with the love of a man, I loved her simply because I found her irresistible. Once for all, I knew to my sorrow, often and often, if not always, that I loved her against reason, against promise, against peace, against hope, against happiness, against all discouragement that could be. Once for all, I love her none the less because I knew it, and it had no more influence in restraining me, than if I had devoutly believed her to be human perfection. No one who can read, ever looks at a book, even unopened on a shelf, like one who cannot. A day wasted on others is not wasted on oneself. Spring is the time of year when it is summer in the sun and winter in the shade. That was a memorable day to me, for it made great changes in me. But it is the same with any life. Imagine one selected day struck out of it, and think how different its course would have been. Pause you who read this, and think for a moment of the long chain of iron or gold, of thorns or flowers, that would never have bound you, but for the formation of the first link on one memorable day. It is because I think so much of warm and sensitive hearts, that I would spare them from being wounded. Whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life, or whether that station will be held by anybody else, these pages must show. There is prodigious strength in sorrow and despair. I will honor Christmas in my heart, and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. So, throughout life, our worst weaknesses and meannesses are usually committed for the sake of the people whom we most despise.